Bronson ceramic bearings skate faster and stay faster longer than regular steel bearings. If you're interested in trying some ceramic bearings, but aren't sure if they're worth the price, stick around. I'll tell you about what ceramic bearings are, what makes them stay faster, and stay faster longer than regular steel bearings, and I'll also show you how to use the Bronson cleaning unit that comes with the Bronson Ceramics. It's a ball bearing bonus. Here we go. So, what are ceramic bearings? Ceramic bearings, when it comes to skateboarding, means that the bearings have ceramic balls instead of the steel balls that most bearings have. Spheres. Ceramic skateboard bearings are hybrid bearings, meaning that the inner and outer races are still steel. There are bearings that are made completely out of ceramic materials, but they're designed for machines that rotate much faster than your wheels could ever spin on a skateboard. They're also meant to be used in extreme heat or when you need a bearing that won't conduct electricity. Basically, they're for spaceships and would be too expensive and fragile for the act of skateboarding. Here's some for $2,000. Ceramic bearings are faster than steel bearings and will stay faster longer over time because the ceramic material is harder and smoother than regular steel balls. Spheres. Since the material is harder, they won't succumb to the little dents, gouges, and scratches that the steel balls get over time from the abuse of skateboarding. Dents from heavy impact, scratches from any debris that may have gotten inside. Debris. Here are some close-up shots of the steel bearings versus the Bronson Ceramics. Both have been skated heavily and for many months. You can see all the dents and scratches on the steel balls. On the ceramics, not so much. You can see the ceramic balls have less imperfections and therefore less friction, which means smooth sailing. The fact that ceramic bearings stay faster longer is probably the biggest perk when it comes to ceramic speed. Also, ceramic materials are unaffected by heat. Regular steel balls get hotter the faster they spin. When they get hot enough, they expand, making them even slower. Although the speeds you'd have to reach to make the steel balls expand are faster than you'd probably go on a skateboard, unless you're reaching competitive speeds of 60 miles an hour or faster. So if you fancy yourself a speed racer, ceramic bearings might get you closer to that checkered flag. Me, not so much. Ceramic bearings are also lighter than steel bearings and require less lubricant because the balls are so dang smooth. Spheres. Also, when manufactured, ceramic balls tend to be more perfect spheres than steel. The fact that they're more uniform makes them distribute the weight and pressure of skateboarding more evenly and makes the whole caboodle run smoother. But not all ceramic bearings are created equal. For example, I always assumed that the ceramic balls were white, and some of them are, but not the best ones. Typically, the white ceramic bearings are made of titanium dioxide, which have some of the benefits of ceramics, but aren't as good for skateboarding as the silicon nitride that come with the best ceramic bearings, like Bronson Ceramics. As you can see, there's sort of a gunmetal gray. Silicon nitride, that's the goods right there. So, how much faster are ceramic bearings? On our lab machines that test the speed of bearings, they tested slightly faster than the Bronson G3s, which are the fastest lab-tested steel skate bearings. How do they feel? To be honest, when it comes to bearings, most of my skating life, I never felt like I could really tell if one bearing was much faster than another. So often I feel like we get new bearings when we get new wheels, so your board is always going to feel faster than your old wheels and bearings did. New wheels with new bearings on smooth flat ground should feel like one push and you'll roll forever. However, if a bearing is really bad, you can feel it even when they're brand new. If you've ever stepped on a cheap toy store complete, or you had a bearing break or seize up on you, you know the feeling of a bad bearing. It's like the brakes are always on and you're always about to fall forward. If If a bearing is really good, like top notch, you can feel how fast it is right away. Since Bronson started making bearings, I've been riding the G3s, and I would have said that the G3s felt like they were the fastest bearings I'd ever skated, until I tried the ceramics. To me, those felt a little bit faster, and as of this point in my life, I'll say that they're the fastest bearings I've ever skated. And I can say after riding them for the last few months, I'm going to try and get them whenever I can, and I'll be riding this set for as long as I can. Knowing now how ceramic bearings are special because they keep their speed by staying smooth, I'm excited to see how long they'll stay that fast. Trying at 20 though, fall down. Which brings me to the cost. At around 80 bucks, Bronson ceramic bearings are at the high end of bearings. They don't get much faster than that. In general, unless you're getting hustled, the more expensive the bearing is, the faster your skateboard will roll. But not all brands use the same manufacturing techniques or materials, so I can't guarantee you that a bearing will be good just because it costs a certain amount. This is just a general approximation. An average quality bearing usually costs around $15 to $20. There are cheaper bearings, but I'd caution that any less than that, and you probably aren't getting a bearing that is particularly fast or long-lasting. So you may end up needing new bearings sooner than later because they broke and you had to buy new ones. A really good bearing, like the fastest steel bearings, Bronson G3s, cost around 30 bucks. If you're a bearing baller on a budget and you need to stay in that cheaper range, I would suggest some Bronson G2s or the independent GPBs. Which brings me to ABEC. ABEC is an acronym that stands for the Annular Bearing Engineering Committee, ABEC. They rate bearings. ABEC is a rating for bearing precision, so the higher an ABEC number is, the more precise a bearing is. ABEC 3, 5, 7 always seems to be odd numbers. Usually a higher ABEC means a faster bearing, but that doesn't take into account important factors when it comes to skating, like strength, durability, and protection from dirt. So just because a bearing has a high ABEC rating doesn't necessarily make them a better bearing for skateboarding. ABEC used to be a bigger deal in skateboarding, but now it seems like the best skate bearing companies don't even really use it. Just saying, maybe don't put all your eggs in the ABEC basket. So, why invest 80 bucks into a new set of Bronson ceramic bearings? If you're loaded and you just want to flex your setup, there you go. Knock yourself out. Maybe you simply want the fastest bearings. I honestly think they're the fastest bearings I've ever skated, and I've heard the same from some of my friends and coworkers who have skated them as well. You don't even have to maintain them, and they're still going to stay faster and last as long as the best steel bearings. However, they are designed to be cleaned and maintained. Done correctly, ceramic bearings can last you many years. In order to keep them spinning at top speeds and get the most out of the ceramic smoothness, you're going to want to clean them if they get dirty. Thankfully, they come with the Bronson cleaning unit, or the BCU as I like to call it. Not just a fancy case, the cleaning unit is a big perk to keep your Bronson ceramics at top speeds, and it can be used to clean any other skateboard bearings you might have. Inside the case, besides the bearings, you get the cleaning instructions, spacers and washers, as well as 8 extra shields in case any of your shields get damaged. See those bearing posts inside? That allows the bearings to be separated and to clean your washers, spacers, and shields as well. If you have the BCU, Bronson Cleaning Unit, a bottle of rubbing alcohol, and the high-speed oil, you pretty much have everything you need to clean most skateboard bearings. The cleaning unit is going to be sold alone as well, without bearings. It's about 10 bucks and should be available this spring. It comes with the instructions as well as spacers and washers. The unit itself does not come with the extra shields, however. If you had any other bearings besides Bronson, they probably wouldn't work anyway. So if you were ever thinking about getting a bearing cleaner or are interested in learning how to clean and maintain your bearings, that's a huge bonus right there. Which leads me to the question, are you a bearing person? What's a bearing person? If you've been skating for a while, you might know a skater that cares about their bearings in some fashion, possibly excessively. Maybe they like to clean their bearings, maybe they like to ride their bearings without shields, maybe they just like to spin their wheels and listen to how long they go. Bearing people. Sometimes they're speed nerds, sometimes they're skate nerds, or just nerds. I'm not knocking them, as I don't consider the term nerd an insult as much as a compliment. Not all bearing people are the same, but it does seem like either you're a bearing person or you're not. Historically, I would say I'm not really a bearing person, partly because I was sponsored, but also because as a kid I used to disassemble my BMX bike all the time and try and overly tune it up. Half the time I would make my bike worse, but sometimes that's how you learn how little things work. So it's not that I don't care or understand the importance of bearings. In fact, it's the respect and fear that I have of screwing them up that made me want to leave them alone. And the dirty fingers. If you want to be a bearing person, get the Bronson Ceramics, and not only will you have the fastest bearings, but you'll have the kit as well as the knowledge of how to clean and maintain your bearings. I mentioned the cleaning unit comes with the instructions, but I'll show you how to do it in this video as well. Maybe I am a bearing person. Speaking of bearing people, if you're the type of skater who likes to hear that loud spin of a dry bearing without shields, and that's your thing, you might want to just get some Bronson Raws. They come that way and are designed to ride without shields or lubrication. They hiss. Some people like that. Bearing people. When it comes to ceramics, if they're clean and lubricated, they should spin smooth and quiet. How to use the cleaning unit. You want to know how to clean your bearings? Before we get to how, let's talk about when you should clean them first. I caution anyone who watches this and immediately wants to remove their shields and get inside their bearings, not to be too hasty. If your bearings are new, spin fast and quiet, and don't look too dirty, I'd say don't mess with them. Also, depending on the brand, the shields might not even be removable. So don't destroy your bearings trying to clean them in a way they weren't meant for. Make sure you know what kind of bearings you have and find out if the shields come off. All Bronson bearings do have removable shields. I understand if you're frothing though. If you're like me and you get your hands on the bearing cleaning unit, you're going to want to try it. It's fun. If you really just have to clean some bearings when you get the kit, I understand the excitement, but I wouldn't suggest cleaning your new bearings right away. Maybe try cleaning an old set of bearings, or maybe you can help a friend clean theirs to get some practice. With Bronson Ceramics or any of the Bronson bearings, there's no recommended maintenance schedule, like every 6 months or anything like that. It really depends on what you skate and if any dirt or debris gets inside the bearings. If you ever hear stuff grinding around in there, or they aren't spinning as fast as they once did, it's probably a good time to clean them. We just made a video on how to use the cleaning unit for the Bronson YouTube channel, and we used Gavin's Ceramics. This is Gavin, Bronson brand manager. Talk about shred cred. He had been riding the original prototypes for over a year and had never cleaned them. He skates a lot and he skates dirty spots too. And thanks to those nice tight shields, not too much filth even came out when we did clean them. You probably could have cleaned them earlier, but just because you get ceramic bearings doesn't mean you have to be obsessive about cleaning them. Apparently this is also a video about not cleaning your bearings. I'm not saying wait a full year, but if they sound smooth and fast, you might want to just let them be and keep those shields nice and tight. Do you? They're your bearings. I'm just trying to help you get them to go as fast as possible and last the longest. After seeing how little dirt got into Gavin's bearings after a year of skating and without cleaning them once, it made me think I'm going to wait a while until I clean mine for the first time. It's not just the abuse of skateboarding that can put stress on your bearings. Over-maintenance, improper installation, or just taking them out of your wheels and putting them back in over and over can put a hurting on them as well. Keeping that all in mind, the best time to clean them might be when you're putting them on a new set of wheels, since you have to take them out of the old wheels anyway. You shouldn't have to clean the ceramics unless you do something that gets them really dirty or you notice that they've slowed down. So here's how to clean them, as well as some tips on installation that should make your Bronson Ceramics last for years. Also, if you want to know some more details on how to install your bearings or why spacers are so important, check out the previous video I made called Don't Break Your Bearings. I'll put it up at the end of this video, or you can find it in the NHS Fun Factory Whale Talk playlist. That being said, I do have a new bearing installation trick for you that Tim Marta, NHS's legendary skate scientist, just taught me. Whenever installing your bearings, take an extra old bearing if you have one, preferably one you don't want to use anymore, and put that on your truck axle before you push the wheels onto the bearings. That way the bearings you care about are being pushed in by the outside race of the old bearing, as opposed to pushing in the new bearings, from the inside race on the washer and axle. This method puts almost no stress on the important parts of the bearing while installing it. Of course, skateboard bearings are designed to take some stress from the sides, but if you try and keep that stress to the minimum, the longer your bearings will last. Pro tip, thank you Tim. Here's a few other quick tips to make sure you get every dollar's worth out of your bearings. Always use your spacers. It makes the two bearings in each wheel become a solid unit and adds strength to any side pressure that you may have on the bearings. Be careful not to push the lip of the skate key into the shields when tightening and loosening. You can easily dent the shields that way. I know I have. And be very careful not to over tighten your axle nut when putting your wheels back on. Try and get them all the way in by pushing them in with your hands, not by tightening them with the nut. It isn't likely that if you miss one of these steps, you'll automatically ruin your bearings, but over time the little things can add up, and then you won't get the fastest, longest lasting bearings you could have. Okay, here's the stuff you'll need to have a proper bearing cleaning kit. Some of it comes with the ceramics, but there are a couple other things you'll need. The Bronson Ceramics with all the goodies, the cleaning unit, the spacers and washers and instructions, rubbing alcohol, Bronson high-speed oil, a rag, towel, or t-shirt you don't love, a pin, and to be safe, gloves and goggles. I know, you might think you don't really need gloves or goggles, but I will say even if you hold the lid as tight as possible, shaking it for 90 seconds 2 to 4 times, a few drops might fling out. Eyeballs are important sensitive things. You want to hold on to those babies. Making your bearings last for years is great, but you only get 2 of these spheres, and as far as I know, they're still irreplaceable. A drop or 2 of rubbing alcohol with bearing debris in it might not blind you, but let's not find out. I also like wearing gloves for this if you got them. The rubbing alcohol can be a little hard on the fingertips. Add oily bearing filth, the fact that you should repeat this process a few times, and the possibilities of stabbing yourself with a pin, and gloves sound pretty good. Not to mention the joyful feeling of finishing a dirty little job like this, then pulling the gloves off to reveal nice, clean fingers. Are you ready to get cleaning? Let's do it. First off, remove the bearings. You can use a bearing puller, a skate key if it has that option, or how most of us will do it, with your truck axle. Just put the tip in there so you're only pulling out one bearing at a time. All the bearings are out, let's get those shields off. Remove the shield using a pin to pry out the outside edge of the shield, not the inside. Be as careful as you can not to damage the shields. Try not to stab the shields or mess up the edges too much. That's what keeps the dirt out. I like to come in at this angle and really get it under there and then come across. Boop. After a few cleaning sessions and if you've removed the shields a few times, there's a good chance you'll get some dents around the edge. When that happens, the seal of the shield won't be as tight and dirt will get in there easier and then you'll have to clean them more. So be gentle. This is probably the most delicate part of the process. On the cleaning unit posts, place the dirty bearings, washers, and spacers on in this order. Bearing, spacer, bearing, spacer, bearing, half the washers, which is 4, and another bearing on top. I like to call this the speed kebab. It allows the rubbing alcohol to flow through the essential parts of the bearings. It also cleans your spacers and washers too. Put the same stack on the other side. Dual kebabs, you're ready to go. Now fill the cleaning unit about half full with 99% rubbing alcohol, also known as isopropyl, which is pretty cheap and can be found at most grocery or drug stores. There are lesser pure versions like 70%. Try to get the 90%, it will work the best. Put the lid on, make sure it's nice and sealed. It doesn't really snap on, so you need to hold it with your fingers and make sure it's nice and tight. I like to wrap the unit in a rag before I shake it. The important thing is to be firmly holding that lid on. If you're not careful, you can make a mess, so maybe don't do this in your bed or on the kitchen table. Shake it for 90 seconds. Don't be afraid to put a little boogie in it. That's just a general life tip from me. Take off the lid and put it so it covers about 2/3 of the top, so you can pour out the filthy liquid, but not the bearings. Holding it with your fingers like you did with the lid all the way on. Yummy. Fill it up halfway again and repeat the process 2 to 4 times or until the liquid runs clear. Remove the bearings, spacers, and washers and place them on your rag to let them dry for a second. Now if you want, you can put the shields in the unit to give them a quick rinse. Wipe all the parts down to get any of the extra alcohol or dirt off. Put each bearing on the axle individually and give them a spin. This helps get any excess alcohol out of there. Put 1 to 2 drops of the Bronson speed oil in there. Even though the bottle is small, the oil will last a long time since you're only putting a drop or 2 in each bearing each time you clean them. More than worth it. It's important to use the right stuff. Don't use WD-40 or grease. Those will actually slow the bearings down or damage the shields depending on what it's made of. Snap the shields back onto the bearings evenly with your fingers. If they aren't damaged, this should work very easily. Do this to all the bearings. Put them back in your wheels again, installing them carefully and not pushing the skate key into them or over tightening. Now you're good to go. Your Bronson ceramic bearings may last you years. Depending on how hard or often you skate and how they're maintained, they might be the last set of bearings you ever buy. The cleaning unit is something you can hold on to and use for a lifetime of skating, no matter what bearings you're skating. Something you can let your friends use to clean their bearings, or maybe even make a friend. Now who's a bearing person? If you simply want to ball out with the best skate equipment available, there you go. Get the best bearings you can. Bronson Ceramics. How long have those deer been back there? That's amazing. And those hawks? It's pretty cool, actually.